In 2018, a 13-year-old girl woke up at midnight to her dog barking. The girl saw two headlights pulling into her driveway, so she rushed to her parents' bedroom and woke them up. The father goes to the front door and asks the stranger for his badge because he thought it was the police. The only answer he got was a single gunshot to the head. The intruder busts down the door and looks for the girl and her mom. When he found them, the mother was met with yet again a single gunshot. The intruder took the girl to his car and drove home. While he was driving, he saw the cops in his rearview mirror pulling in the driveway of the home. When the man arrived at his house, he hid the girl under his bed and kept her there for weeks, until one day, when he thought he got away with his crime, he went to apply for a job. That's when the girl escaped and told the police everything. The man, Jake Patterson, was arrested and is serving a life sentence for his crimes.
Imagine calling police for help during a break-in, but they're the ones who end up killing you. It was summer 2024 in Springfield in Illinois. Mum of two, Sonia Massey, was living alone, and that night she called police shaking. She was like, "I think somebody has broken into my house. Can you please come and help me?" She wanted some protection. She was a woman there on her own, unarmed. Officers showed up, and at this point it's absolutely pitch black outside. It was just after 1 a.m. And she was super grateful and relieved that they were actually there. She met them out on the porch. She was really, really thankful. She was rummaging around to try and find her ID to show them. Now, the two officers, Sean Grayson and Dawson Farley, were kind of looking around and they couldn't really see anybody. They couldn't really find any evidence that anybody had broken in. So they stood in her lounge/kitchen. It was kind of open plan. And they were like, "Oh, there's a pot of something on the stove that's hot. The last thing we want to deal with is a fire. Can you see to that?" So bear in mind, they've literally just told her to go over to a boiling pot on the stove. And the body cam footage is honestly wild. It's so disturbing. The way that Sean just switches. As she was dealing with the pan, she said, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus." He then suddenly grabs his weapon out of the blue and starts pointing it at her. In the most aggressive way ever, he shouts, "I will effing shoot you in the effing face." This is a woman who's just following instructions. She's clearly vulnerable and she's already scared. Stunned and terrified, she ducks down behind the counter and she says sorry. Sean then callously shot her in the head. Tellingly, his colleague immediately went to get medical help, but Sean said not to bother. He goes, "Now she's done." When he was actually charged with the killing, he had the nerve to try and claim that it was some kind of self-defense. He was like, "I was justified in using this deadly force. Can I just remind you, you're only allowed to use deadly force when you feel that deadly force is about to be used on you." And by the way, he literally could have just left the house. Like, this woman was unarmed. If he really did think that she was going to throw a pan of water on him, he could have just run away. I've recently just posted a podcast episode, by the way, about the perfect neighbor case, and I go into so much detail about this argument, about the debate of using deadly force. Sean's colleague testified against him in court and confirmed Sonia, quote, "never did anything to make him think she was a threat." Thankfully, Sean was found guilty of second-degree murder and is due to be sentenced in January.
Shocking? Not one bit, but terrifying 1,000,000%. I have not yet finished the documentary that just came out, but since the conversations are happening again about what really happened to Tupac, here's what I think you should know about his final hours and the years leading up to them. Not a girl, just a lawyer. Everything that I'm saying is public information you can find on the internet. Thanks. November 30th in New York City, 1994, Tupac Shakur shows up to Quad Recording Studios in Times Square. He's there because he got a call from a music manager to go record a verse for a song. He agreed to do it. He shows up. When he walks into the building just after midnight, he hears familiar voices. It's New York City at a recording studio where artists like him frequently visit. Not surprising that he would know people there. So he's thinking, okay, cool, let me walk in, say hello, see who's there. But before he can, he is ambushed by 3 men in the lobby. It felt like a robbery initially because the men had weapons and they were demanding money and all and any of Tupac's jewelry that he was wearing, and they did rob him of $40,000 worth of jewelry, but it was too late. By the time that Tupac managed to get into the elevator to hide, he was already hurt. He takes the elevator up. The elevator arrives on the 8th floor. The doors open. A very distressed Tupac Shakur stumbles out. Not only is he in pain, he remembers feeling like his entire body was numb, but he felt weird. He was also in shock and also scared. On the 8th floor, he sees a big group of men. They're also there, presumably working on music. In said group, group are Biggie and Diddy. As soon as one of the guys lays eyes on Tupac, they yell at him to sit down. He's bleeding from everywhere. He has 5 total wounds to his body, including 2 to his head, and yet ignoring what he's feeling, or I guess rather not feeling, because his body is in such shock, past whatever pain that he's in, he thinks it's weird that no one in that room will make eye contact with him. And the people in there are his friends, longtime friends, people that he's known for a long time, yet seemingly no one seems to acknowledge him, and that's when it clicks to him that what just happened in the lobby was not just a robbery. It was a planned, orchestrated ambush against Tupac, and he thinks some of the people in the building, some of the people that he is now in the same room as, had something or everything to do with it. There was already present growing tension within California, but after that night, the relationship between the East Coast rappers and the West Coast rappers was never going to be the same again. For context, Bad Boy Entertainment, extremely successful on the East Coast. Sean Combs owns Bad Boy. Death Row Records, extremely successful on the West Coast. Suge Knight was the CEO of Death Row. Tupac was one of the greatest and most influential rappers of all time, and arguably the biggest artist that Death Row Records had. Biggie, aka the Notorious B.I.G., was arguably the biggest artist that Bad Boy Entertainment had. So Tupac to Death Row Record was the equivalent to Biggie to Bad Boy Entertainment. And West Coast rappers plus the East Coast rappers in the 1990s equals enemies. Less than 2 years after what happened to Tupac in that lobby, he would be killed. On September 7th of 1996, Tupac was in Vegas to attend the Mike Tyson fight, the boxing match. Mike Tyson was a close friend of his. That took place at the MGM Grand Arena in Vegas, and Tupac actually didn't even really want to go to Vegas in the first place because he had other stuff that he would have rather dealt with, but he went, and Suge Knight was also there with him. After the fight, Tupac got in an altercation with someone, Orlando Anderson, at the hotel. Orlando Anderson had allegedly attempted to rob one of Tupac's friends a few weeks earlier. It's also been rumored that Anderson attempted to rob that guy because Sean Diddy Combs told him to do so. Anderson was buddy-buddy with Diddy. But that night at the hotel, the one guy who was almost robbed saw Anderson, told Tupac that he was there, that he was the person who tried to rob him, and Tupac rushed over to confront him. It was a whole thing. MGM security guards had to break it up, and Tupac went back to his hotel room eventually. At the hotel room, he told his girlfriend at the time about the fight that he had just gotten involved with, and then he left. He changed clothes, left the hotel, got in a car, a BMW sedan with Suge Knight. He was driving. Tupac was sitting in the passenger seat. They were heading to a charity concert at a club where Tupac was supposed to perform that night. Tupac's bodyguard, Frank Alexander, would later say that he wanted to be in the car with Tupac, right? That makes sense because he is his bodyguard, but allegedly Tupac asked him to drive in a different car, not only to drive some of his friends, some of the other guys, but also in case they wanted to have separate cars at the end of the night when everyone went back to the hotel. Other friends of theirs, members of Death Row Records, as well as cars full of girls and women driving closely behind them, all driving to the same club. They were driving, and around 11 p.m., Suge and Tupac get pulled over for playing the music too loud in their cars, as well as for failing to have a license plate, but then they were let go without getting a ticket. At 11:10 p.m., while stopped at a red light, Tupac had his window down, and he spoke to some people in the car that was parked next to him. It was a group of women, and he said something to invite them to come see him perform at the club. Within the next 5 minutes after that, so at around 11:15 p.m., a white Cadillac pulled up right next to Tupac's car, rolled down the window when someone pulled out a weapon from inside the car and fired at the BMW. Tupac got injured in 4 separate places, twice in the chest, once in the leg, and once on his arms. Suge was also injured, but nowhere near as bad. He was able to manage and continue driving even though they now had a flat tire. Police officers pulled them over again, saw that they were hurt, called paramedics to the scene, and then both Suge and Tupac were rushed to the hospital. Suge was okay. He was released the following day, but he did not talk to anyone until 3 days later. When he did talk, he told authorities that he, quote, heard something but saw nothing, end quote. Tupac, however, was not doing well. His injuries were severe. He was placed on life support and then in a medically induced coma. There was not a time in which he was alone in there. He always had either a friend or a family member right next to him on his bedside. Tupac Shakur passed away 6 days later at the hospital on September 13th of 1996 at 4:03 p.m. He was only 25 years old. Following his passing, the investigation into who did it pretty much felt like it was going nowhere because no one wanted to cooperate with the police. Whether it was people that were there the night of or not, no one was talking. After it happened, Suge Knight was asked if he saw something or heard something, if he would come forward, to which he responded to by saying, quote, absolutely not. No one was talking, which only made it easier for speculation to grow because there were no answers. People thought that maybe it had something to do with Orlando Anderson, the guy that Tupac got in an altercation with at the hotel right before he got in the car, because Tupac came on to him at the hotel. People speculated and wondered if Anderson could have been mad enough to then go after him for a final time once he was in the car. People wondered if Biggie Smalls could have had something to do with it, because Biggie was on the East Coast, Tupac was on the West Coast. They were rivals, and Tupac had pretty much been dissing Biggie in his songs for years. They were friends at one point, but when they became enemies, that was public knowledge. Tupac also did have reason to believe that Biggie did have something to do with the 1994 incident. He had said to people around him that he had been told that Biggie and or Diddy as well, but Biggie was the person behind what happened in Quad Recording Studios in New York City in 1994. Others considered the possibility that Suge Knight himself could have planned Tupac's death, because allegedly shortly before, Tupac had been considering leaving Death Row Records. When he first got signed with Death Row Records, Tupac felt like he owed Suge Knight because he had actually bailed him out of prison. Tupac had been arrested and convicted for SA allegations in 1995, but Suge Knight, then CEO of Death Row Records, negotiated a deal. He offered to pay for Tupac's bail, which was over $1 million if Tupac agreed to sign with Death Row Records. He agreed, they paid his bail, Tupac was released and began working under Death Row, where his career skyrocketed. But the people closest to him, for example his mom, said that he had been considering leaving Death Row because he felt like they just wanted too much control over him, and he didn't think that they were giving him enough of a fair cut of the money that he was making. Needless to say, a lot of speculation on who would have had the motivation to kill him. A lot of tension between the rap world, so much so that within a 10-day period there were so many fights, altercations, and incidents that led to 3 other rappers losing their lives and 22 others being arrested. Yet nothing was connected to Tupac's death. September of 2018, Eminem releases a diss track aimed at Machine Gun Kelly, having nothing to do with Tupac, but in said song, the lyrics read, quote, "Kels, the day you put out a hit's the day that Diddy admits that he put out a hit that got Pac killed," end quote. At the end of the song, he says, "I'm just playing Diddy, you know I love you." You could look at that and say, oh, Eminem just flat out told the world that Diddy was responsible for Tupac's death. However, Eminem has said that that was meant to be a joke, basically saying like, MGK, you're never gonna have a hit song unless Diddy confesses to something that he never would. Does that make sense? At the time, Diddy was not in the spotlight as much as he is now, so that kind of went over a lot of people's heads, but nevertheless, we're gonna come back to Eminem, don't worry. September 2023, 60-year-old Dwayne Davis, aka Keefe D, is arrested in connection to Tupac's murder. Keefe D also happens to be Orlando Anderson's uncle. Remember the guy that Tupac got in a fight at the hotel before he got in the car. Keefe D is arrested, law enforcement stating, quote, "Dwayne Davis was the caller for this group of individuals that committed this crime. He orchestrated the plan that was carried out," end quote. Following his arrest, he starts talking one of the most shocking, alarming things that he says being that, yes, he was involved in Tupac's murder, but it wasn't his idea. He says a certain someone was actually the person who planned out and orchestrated and hired others to kill Tupac. That person, Sean Diddy Combs. Keefe D claims, his words not mine, he says that Diddy paid them, him and his friends, I guess, associates, I don't know, paid them $1 million to get rid of Tupac. He says that even before he paid them and actually offered them to go through with it, Diddy allegedly made it clear to not only him, but a group of guys, like 40 other guys, that he would, quote, give them anything for them dudes' heads, end quote, referring to Suge and Tupac. Keefe D tells authorities that Diddy brought it up to them again, getting rid of Tupac. And at first, Keefe D was laughing. He thought that it was a joke, but then he said, okay, if you want us to do that, if you want me to do that, we'll do it for $1 million. And Diddy agreed. Keefe D is saying this to authorities in 2023, okay? But obviously everything that happened in 1996. So Keefe D, along with Diddy, come up with this plan on how they're going to get rid of Tupac. Then that night, Tupac just so happens to get into a fight with Keefe D's nephew, Orlando Anderson, at the hotel, and in Keefe D's head, it only makes him want to go through with the plan even more so because Tupac just went after his nephew. Then they all get into their cars, Suge and Tupac in their car, Keefe D and Anderson in their car, driving around looking for Tupac because they knew the general direction they were driving in. They knew that they were going to that club. Suge and Tupac get pulled over for playing their music too loud. The car full of girls pulls up right next to them. One of the girls yells out, "Tupac." Keefe D and Anderson then hear that. They see Tupac and Suge in the car, drive up to it, and fire at it. Keefe D says that Suge Knight saw him. He says that they made eye contact and that Suge would have recognized him because the two of them have known each other ever since they were kids. So according to him, Suge Knight saw him in the car. Yet we know that he never snitched. He never told authorities what he saw that night, saying, quote, "I'm not going to snitch on anyone. I would never snitch on anyone because I ain't no snitch," end quote. So according to Keefe D, they got rid of Tupac. Diddy failed to pay them the $1 million they agreed on. Allegedly, they only got $500,000 because they only got rid of Tupac, not Tupac and Suge. But because they never got paid the full amount, it only made it easier for him to tell the truth because he is now angry about the fact that they got the job done, yet they never saw the $1 million. July 2024, Eminem, the one and only, calls Sean Diddy Combs out again in one of his songs, but this time he also mentions Keefe D, writing, "I'm like an RAPER, got so many essays, wait, he didn't just spell the word rapper and leave out a P, did he? RIP, rest in peace, Biggie and Pac, both of y'all should be living, but I ain't trying to beef with him cause he might put a hit on me like Keefe D get him." Biggie Smalls, Diddy's friend and a huge artist signed with Bad Boy Entertainment, Diddy's record label, was killed 6 months after Tupac, almost in the exact same way, while he was in the car, stopped at a red light when a car drove up next to his, and fired. Much like Tupac, Biggie was rushed to the hospital and then passed away. He was only 24 years old. Tupac and Biggie killed in eerily similar ways within 6 months of each other, both men tied to Sean Diddy Combs in one way or another. You have Keefe D arrested and claiming that he was involved, but that Diddy told him to do it. And then you have Eminem in a song saying that he's not going to mess with Diddy because he, quote, might put a hit on me like Keefe D get him, end quote. October 2024, a woman called Ashley Parham files a lawsuit against Sean Diddy Combs, his right-hand woman, and chief of staff, Christina Korm, a man called Shane Pierce, 3 John Does, and 1 Jane Doe. In her lawsuit, Ashley states that she met Shane Pierce at a bar in 2018. At said bar, Shane allegedly FaceTimed Sean Diddy Combs, trying to flex that he knew a celebrity. Ashley wasn't impressed, and on the call she said something regarding the fact that she doesn't really like Diddy, and she never has because she's always believed that Diddy was the person responsible for Tupac's death. Diddy hears that on FaceTime and tells Ashley that she would pay for what she said regarding Tupac. The following month, allegedly, Shane Pierce lures Ashley to his house. When she gets there, Sean Diddy Combs, Christina Korm, and the 4 others show up and do unspeakable things to Ashley. Truly unspeakable. There was a trigger warning written on top of the lawsuit when describing what happened. It was so terrible. Whatever you're thinking, times it by 1,000,000. And Diddy allegedly made it clear to Ashley that they were doing what they were doing to her because of what she said on the FaceTime call a month earlier, blaming him for Tupac's death. When that happened in 2018, Ashley reported it to authorities, yet nothing was done. But people online speculate that because Diddy did the terrible things that he did to Ashley solely for the reason that she made that comment about Tupac, for a lot of people, when that came out before everything with Keefe D came out, that was reason enough to confirm that Diddy was in fact the person responsible for killing Tupac. Keefe D's trial for the murder of Tupac Shakur has been postponed and is currently set for February of 2026. Does your head hurt? Because mine does. That is all I have. Again, with the whole death of Tupac, there's so many different things being said about this online, so I just wanted to kind of gather all the information, put it into one video to hopefully make it easier for you guys to understand. I know it's hard to keep track of everything going on, but that's my best attempt at putting all of this information in one place for you guys to be able to understand. That is all I have for today's video. I'm gonna run to the comment section as soon as I post this because what is going on? Anyway, hope you guys are having the best day. If not, go do something to make it the best day. Make somebody happy, and I will see you in my next video. Massive kiss on the forehead to every single one of you.
She tried to kill her husband and got caught on national TV.
Is your husband Michael? Okay, I'm sorry to tell you, man. He's been killed. He's been killed, man. I'm sorry.
No, he's not.
Listen.
No.
Try to calm down.
Very quick self-promo. I am so excited to announce that my brand new true crime podcast, Hot on the Case, is going to be out within the week. So if you want to stay updated and follow me along on this brand new journey, make sure that you follow me here and here so you won't miss the first episode. I've never worked harder on something in my entire life, and I cannot wait for you to see it. Mike DiPolito was a married man when his wife went away for the week. So Mike purchased the company of a lady of the night, a professional girlfriend, an escort named Dahlia. And what was meant to be a one-time thing turned into a week-long affair. And by the time that Mike's wife was back home, Mike had already fallen for Dahlia, and he asked his wife for a divorce. Only 5 days after being officially divorced from his ex-wife, Mike and Dahlia were married. The relationship was passionate, physical. The two found each other very attractive. Mike was a big, tough gym guy, and Dahlia is obviously very beautiful. But the honeymoon phase would unfortunately not last very long, because unfortunately Mike would start experiencing a lot of bad luck. In Mike's past, he had been in trouble with the law. He went to prison for 2 years and was given 28 years of probation, but he had really turned his life around. And by the time that he met Dahlia, he had already been on probation for 5 years without any incidents. But after only being married to his wife Dahlia for 1 month, not 1, not 2, not 3, but at least 4 anonymous tips were sent to his probation officer and the police that Mike was dealing and or in the possession of substances, which was not true. But Mike realized that someone was after him. Someone was trying to set him up, get him sent back to prison. Mike became so paranoid. He ended up transferring a lot of his money and his house into his wife's name to protect his assets. But little did Mike know, it was his wife Dahlia that was trying to get him sent back to prison. It's very likely that Dahlia never loved Mike. She was only ever interested in his money. And when setting Mike up to go back to prison didn't work, Dahlia decided that Mike would just have to die. And only 6 months into their marriage, Dahlia hired someone to kill her husband. So Dahlia reached out to this guy, Mohammed, who she had known for a few years. Dahlia knew that he thought that she was pretty, and he had helped her out with some pretty minor stuff in the past. So Dahlia told Mohammed that her husband was abusive and that divorce was not an option. She asked Mohammed if he would kill her husband or find someone that would. And because Mohammed is a normal person, he went to the police. And this is where this case takes a pretty wild turn. To prove in court that Dahlia was actually trying to have her husband killed, the police had to record her hiring a hitman. So they had Mohammed tell Dahlia that he actually did know someone that would kill her husband for her. Dahlia gave Mohammed some cash and also a photo of her husband Mike, and then Dahlia went to meet the hitman, which was of course an undercover police officer. And the silly thing about this case is that this police department was actually working with the TV show Cops, so this entire thing was being secretly recorded for a reality TV show.
We're staying in Paris.
All right, yeah.
Okay.
He makes his plan crystal clear.
I'm gonna tell you how I'm gonna do it and when exactly it's gonna be done. Everybody works in the daytime.
Right.
When he's at work, when he's not at work, then he gets to it ahead.
No, I'm not gonna, I'm a lot tougher than what I look. I know you're like, oh, what a cute little girl, whatever. But I'm not.
You are. You're extremely beautiful.
Thank you, but I just need to make sure everything's gonna get taken care of.
A hitman asks Dahlia if she's sure that she wants her husband dead because she won't be able to change her mind. This isn't something that she can easily take back. And Dahlia tells the hitman, undercover cop, that she is 5,000% sure.
For now, and when it's done, you're not gonna have an option to change your mind, even if you change your mind.
No, there's no, I'm determined already. I'm positive, 5,000% sure.
So the police have more than enough evidence that Dahlia is trying to kill her husband, but because they're working with this TV show Cops, I think they were trying to up the entertainment value. So on the actual day that the hitman and Dahlia planned to have Mike murdered, the police actually went to Mike and told him that his wife hired a hitman and was trying to kill him. The police then called Dahlia and told her that something happened to her husband and she had to come home right away. And then when Dahlia showed up, they recorded her for TV hearing that her husband was killed.
I'm Sergeant Ramsey. I'm the one that called you. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry to call you. Listen, we had a report of a disturbance at your house, and there were shots fired. Is your husband Michael? Okay, I'm sorry to tell you, man. He's been killed. He's been killed, man. I'm sorry.
No, it's not.
Listen.
No.
Try to calm down. Listen, right now we need to get you to the station. We need to get you to our police station. I can't let you see him, man. We have to do our job. If you want us to find this killer, okay, we need you to calm down. I'm going to need you to go with these detectives, okay? I can't let you see him, ma'am. Ma'am, I cannot do this right now. Ma'am, I can't do it.
They bring Dahlia back to the police station for questioning, and while they're there, they tell her that they think they have in custody who killed her husband, Mike. They bring in the hitman, undercover police officer, and then the police finally tell Dahlia that everything's been a lie, she has been set up, she's under arrest, and also her husband, Mike, is still very much alive.
You know this guy. Come here. Bring this guy in here. You know who this guy is?
No,
You've never seen him before.
I've never seen him before, ever.
Do you know her?
Put your head up and look at her.
Put your head up.
I've never seen him.
What were you doing coming out of her house? You're going to jail today for solicitation of murder. You're under arrest. That's an undercover police officer. We filmed everything that you did, recorded everything that you did. You're going to jail for solicitation of first-degree murder of your husband.
I didn't do anything.
Did you hear what I just told you?
I heard what you said, but I didn't
Everything,
do anything.
listen to me. Listen to
I
me.
didn't do anything.
You're going to
I didn't
jail.
do anything, please. I didn't do anything.
Your husband is well and alive.
Thank God.
Oh, yeah, thank God.
Please? Can I see him?
No, he doesn't
please?
want to see you.
I so wanted to see him.
He doesn't want to see you. Here, stay right here.
Oh my God.
He's alive.
Come here, please. Come here. Mike, come here. Come here, please. Come here.
Can't fix this.
Why not? I didn't do anything
I
to
heard you.
Mike, come here, please. Come here.
I would just love to know what was going through her head at that exact moment. And Mike obviously filed for divorce from Dahlia, making it his second divorce in 1 year. During Dahlia's trial, her defense strategy was honestly really stupid. The defense strategy was to say that the entire thing was a misunderstanding, and actually Mike was aware of the entire situation because her and her husband Mike had actually plotted this together for them to get on reality TV. It's so stupid. It doesn't make any sense. The jury agreed because she was found guilty and sentenced to 20 years in prison. But there was something wrong with that first trial, so Dahlia was given a second trial. This time her defense strategy was to claim police entrapment. This time the jury couldn't come up with a decision, so Dahlia was given a third trial. At that point, it had been over 8 years since Dahlia first tried to kill her husband, and she had been on house arrest for the entire thing. But with this third jury, they found her guilty and she was sentenced to 16 years in prison. But with time served for the house arrest, Dahlia is expected to be released from prison in February of 2031, which really isn't that far away. Really interested to get you guys' take on this case. Do you think she got a fair trial? Do you think it's fair that they recorded this entire thing for reality TV? Do you think that she got too harsh of a sentence or too light of a sentence? Let me know all your opinions in the comments. While you're there, let me know how excited you are for my brand new podcast, Hot on the Case, coming out very soon.
I will never understand how you can be completely normal your entire life and then one day just snap and kill your entire family. How you can strangle your pregnant wife and then your kids one by one and then dispose of them in remote oil tanks at your work. One thing about this case that has always stood out to me though is this moment right here. It's when police showed up to search Chris Watts' home for his missing pregnant wife and 2 kids. At this point, he had already killed them and knew exactly what happened to them. But as he's being questioned, this commercial pops up in the background. It was a commercial for American Horror Story, which showed a fetus, a woman buried in a shallow grave, and a skull covered in oil at an oil field. I know this is more than likely just a coincidence, but that is exactly how he killed his family. So when it shows up as he is actively being questioned about them is insane and honestly really creepy. This alone is one of the main reasons I believe in some sort of afterlife, because what are the odds of this happening? It's like someone on the other side was for sure trying to make sure that he got caught. This is the Watts family murders, and trigger warning, because absolutely nothing about this is easy to hear. It's a cautionary tale that I think more people should be aware of, so let's talk about it. This is Chris and Shanann Watts. They grew up in North Carolina and met in 2010, and they very quickly hit it off. Chris seemed like this charming, hardworking guy, and just 2 years later, they were married. By 2015, they moved to Frederick, Colorado, and had 2 beautiful little girls, 4-year-old Bella and 3-year-old Celeste, who they called Cece. Chris was working as an oil field operator for a company called Anadarko Petroleum, and Shanann worked from home for Thrive, selling healthcare products and taking care of their 2 little girls. In 2018, they became pregnant with their 3rd child, this time a baby boy who they planned to name Nico. On the outside looking in, they seemed to have a perfect, happy life, but behind closed doors, they had been having relationship and financial financial problems for years. The Watts had recently filed for bankruptcy and had a lot of debt, and unbeknownst to everyone, Chris had been having an affair with a coworker named Nicole Kessinger. According to Nicole, they really started hanging out and going on extravagant dates in June of 2018, and from her understanding, Chris and Shanann had separated. According to her, she didn't know that he was still married, and no one, and I mean no one, could have expected things to escalate like they did. In the early morning hours of August 13th, 2018, Shanann returned home from a weekend business trip to Arizona. She was driven home by her best friend and coworker, Nicole A. And I want to be clear, this is a different Nicole from Chris's mistress. So Shanann was dropped off at home around 1:48 a.m., and this right here was the very last time she was ever seen alive. The very next morning, Shanann's best friend Nicole immediately felt like something was wrong because Shanann missed a really important OB appointment for her baby. That, and she wasn't answering any of Nicole's calls or texts, which was unusual. But panic really started to set in when that afternoon came and went, and Shanann had missed a business meeting with Nicole. So being an angel of a best friend, Nicole drove over to the Watts family home and started banging on the door, but she got no response. She then called Chris, who was at work, and asked her if he knew where Shanann was. Chris was acting a little off-putting on the phone, but he said that he didn't know where she was, and that's when Nicole ended up reporting Shanann missing to the police. Chris rushed home from work, and at around 2 p.m., he was greeted by police wanting to conduct a welfare check on Shanann. But what Chris told them next really shocked everyone. He said that not only did he not know where his wife was, but he also didn't know where his 2 young daughters were either. He told police that the last time he saw Shanann was at 5:15 the previous morning as he was leaving for work, but now he had no clue where his family was. During this entire interview and the body cam footage, you can see how anxious and panicky Chris looks, all while Shanann's best friend Nicole is kind of side-eyeing him. She knew right away that how he was acting was not normal and a huge red flag, and she had no problem vocalizing this to authorities. But Chris gave investigators and even the FBI, who quickly joined the investigation, permission to search his house. It was an incredibly eerie scene because although there was no sign of a struggle, something in the air just felt off, as if time had frozen still. Investigators found Shanann's purse inside the home with her keys and lupus medication, which is something she really needed and would never leave without. Police then found her phone stuffed between some of the couch cushions in the living room. But what's incredibly eerie and would later become critical in this investigation was that Chris and Shanann's bed just so happened to be missing a fitted bedsheet, and Chris had no explanation for why it was missing either. Sitting on the nightstand was Shanann's wedding ring, and in her garage was her car with both Bella and Cece's car seats still inside. So it became very clear that Shanann had not left the house willingly with the girls, otherwise their car seats would be gone too. It's this moment right here though that really sends chills up my spine and gives me goosebumps. It's body cam footage from when one of the police officers were questioning Chris in his house. In the background is their TV, and on it a really disturbing commercial plays. This commercial ended up being for American Horror Story, but it showed a fetus, a woman buried in a shallow grave, and a skull covered in oil at an oil field, just like where Chris worked. As Chris is shuffling around becoming more and more antsy, he notices the commercial, and that's when he said, quote, "Oh yeah, Shanann was pregnant too." End quote. No one knew it at the time, but this commercial was heavily foreshadowing the grim and gruesome reality of what Chris had done to his family. And it's also because of this interview right here that has given so many people trust issues. This is one of the many interviews Chris gave to news stations, standing outside of his house begging for his wife's return. Looking back, his body language is pretty much a dead giveaway that he was involved, and he also refers to his family in past tense too, which is really creepy. He was trying his best to come off as this worried dad who just wanted his family home safe, but it wouldn't be long before this fake concern was ripped away. As Chris was brought in for questioning, police went through his phone records, and it was only then that they discovered that he was having an affair. He never willingly brought this up, but once they found out, this kind of spun the investigation in a whole new direction. Chris confessed to having an affair with his co-worker, Nicole, and although she denied knowing that he was still married, according to him, she knew the whole time. Chris was then given a polygraph test, which he failed horribly. Like, he got one of the lowest scores possible, and then he told investigators that he would finally confess, but only if he could talk to his dad first. So police allowed this, and then came his confession. Chris told police that when Shanann got home from her business trip that morning, he admitted to having an affair and told her that he wanted a divorce. And in a blind rage, Shanann smothered her 2 kids, and then he killed her as justification. He told police that he then disposed of their bodies at the oil field where he worked. Meanwhile, authorities were combing through security footage from his neighbor's house, which painted an an entirely different story. In the security footage, you can see Chris loading a gas can into his truck and then backing his truck all the way into his garage, which is something he never did. This is when he loaded Shanann's dead body into the truck, and then his two daughters, Bella and Cece, who were still alive at this point, contradicting what he initially told police. Police then gave Chris a photo of the oil field and told him to mark the locations where they would be able to find his family. And this time, he didn't lie. When investigators got to the remote oil field 3 days later, they discovered a gruesome scene. There they found Shanann buried in a shallow grave, and their fitted bedsheet that was missing from the scene nearby. It was determined that she'd been strangled to death, and a DRUG was found in her system. And what I'm about to say next is extremely graphic, so be warned. After Shanann was buried, she had a coffin birth, meaning her fetus, baby Nico, and the placenta had partially come out of her and was buried with her, covered with dirt and sand. A coffin birth is a natural phenomenon where a fetus is expelled from the body of a deceased pregnant woman after her death. This happens due to a buildup of gases inside the decomposing body, which increases pressure on the uterus and pushes the fetus out through the birth canal. It can also occur in a coffin or grave setting, which is where the name comes from. The bodies of Bella and Cece were found next, both submerged in separate crude oil tanks. They had been smothered to death, which we later found out was Chris smothering them with a blanket. Their bodies had been pushed through a hatch at the top of the oil tanks, and each lid was only 8 inches in diameter, so extremely small. This meant that Chris had to physically shove them in hard. This was confirmed via the autopsy, as they both had scrapes all over their bodies from this, as well as chunks of hair on the edge of the hatch. After this discovery, Chris was immediately arrested, and since then he's given many stories as to why he killed his entire family. The one story that is kind of stuck and is probably the closest to the truth is that when Shanann came home that night, he did confront her about the affair and wanting a divorce. Chris said that the DRUG that was found in her system was given to her by him, hoping that it would end the pregnancy so that he could be with his mistress easier. He said that while he was strangling Shanann, it looked like she was praying, and then Bella walked in on him. He told her that her mom was sick, and then he tried to strangle his kids in their own beds, but they kept waking back up. So then he loaded Shanann's body into the truck and then forced her babies to sit right next to her, not in their car seats, as he drove them to the oil field. He made them wait in the car as he buried their mom. And when he came back, he said that he used a blanket to smother Cece to death. When it came to be Bella's turn, she asked, quote, "Is the same thing gonna happen to me as Cece?" End quote. And as he took her life, Chris said that Bella's last words were "Daddy, no," as she begged him not to kill her. She even had defensive wounds on her hands. At 4 years old, that is just devastating. Chris later said that whenever he closes his eyes, he can hear Bella's last words, which I hope haunts him forever. So after Chris confessed, he pleaded guilty to multiple charges of first-degree murder as part of a plea deal to get out of the death penalty. This plea deal was supported by Shanann's family, as they didn't want any more deaths, which I can totally understand. In a split second, they lost one entire family to murder. Chris was instead sentenced to 5 life sentences without the possibility of parole. He was then transferred to a maximum security prison in Wisconsin for his own safety. I guess he is not well liked in prison. What's gross is that he has a lot of his family's pictures in his cell, so every day he gets to look at the people whose lives he stole. Since his conviction, so many women have sent him fan mail, basically in support of him. They say he's handsome and misunderstood, which makes me question their intelligence and their eyesight. It's disgusting because he not only receives these letters, but he also sends racy letters back to them. It doesn't change the fact that whenever he's interviewed about his family, his eyes turn black. In 2021, some of those letters were leaked to the public, in which he confessed to even more. He said he had actually planned the murders for weeks. That's just something I will never get. Why not just leave if you are that unhappy? Why kill everyone in the process? He killed his family to be with his mistress, and now he has neither of them. A lot of people question Nicole's involvement and feel that she knows more than she was letting on. Some even think that she was involved in the actual killings. She has always denied this and has since dropped off the face of the earth. But she did say that in the days leading up to the murders, Chris's behavior completely changed. How involved Nicole was, I'm not sure if we will ever truly know. What really gets me is that the kids show Cocomelon, which my kids watch a lot, actually paid tribute to Bella, Cece, and Nico and named some of its characters after them. It is emotional to watch. It is very scary how a seemingly normal man went a good portion of his life acting sane, and in all regards, loving and charming. And then one day out of the blue, he just snapped and committed one of the worst crimes that I have ever heard of. Chris had no previous history of domestic violence or any criminal record at all. In the days leading up to the murders, Shanann told friends that she was having concerns over her marriage and didn't know if Chris still loved her. Even though she loved him so much, she felt that something was not right, but she never thought that her life was in danger. So I guess this is a good reminder that domestic violence can happen anywhere, and it's not a matter of if it will escalate to this point, it's a matter of when. Rest in peace, Shanann, Bella, Cece, and Nico. I hope that you guys are all together somewhere, living the life that you deserved here.
My daddy is a hero. He helps me grow up strong. He helped me snuggle too. He reads me books. He ties my shoes. If you're a hero, blue and blue, my daddy is love you. Oh, I love.
How does someone creep into a basement, murder someone, then disappear right before your eyes? It took police 4 years to work it out. It was October 2014 in beautiful Martinsville, Illinois. Kaylin Whitaker was just 20 years old and she was a student at Ivy Tech College. She was incredibly creative. She was an amazing artist. She had this really creative flair. And she was also an amazing musician. She played the cello. She was very talented. She got on with anyone she met. She was a really warm, friendly girl. And she was also a family girl. She had 2 older brothers and she was super close with all her family. And she was living with her fiance, Connor Scott. Now, money was a bit tight. They were both pretty young and they were actually living in Connor's parents' basement. It kind of meant that they had their own space and privacy, but not massive bills. But on Halloween night, tragedy struck. Kaylin and Connor were home alone in bed just before midnight. And Connor was like, suddenly I woke to the loudest noise. A full-on bang right in his ear. And when he looked over, Kaylin was dead. He immediately grabbed the phone, he rang 911 and he was like, a gun has just gone off and my girlfriend is dead. He's like, she's not breathing, but there's nobody else in the house. And the dispatcher's like, well, if nobody else is in the house, do you think she did this to herself? And he was like, well, I really don't think so. He said all he could see now was a gun on the floor. And when police got to the scene, there were even more questions than answers. What really didn't make sense about this crime scene is that if this was really a self-unaliving, she was right-handed, so why was the gunshot in the left side of her head? Had someone snuck in and then in the chaos managed to sneak out undetected? I mean, investigators really could not make sense of this crime scene. They hadn't got any viable suspects, so the case was ruled as a self-unaliving. But they just couldn't be sure, so work was going on behind the scenes. 10 months later, after further testing, the case was reclassified, this time as a homicide. And Kaylin's parents were absolutely horrified. They were like, what do you mean? This means that a killer is just on the loose. Terrified and with no real answers, they had to struggle on with their lives. And Connor seemed to try and move on too. He started dating a new girl. Until something happened that blew this case wide open. By this point, it was 2019, and like I said, Connor had been dating other people. He was with another girlfriend. But suddenly, one night, police were called. Connor was absolutely wasted, with a loaded weapon, threatening to unalive himself. His girlfriend said that she had told him she wanted to break up, and he was like, I will pull the trigger right now. Now, thankfully, police raced over to the scene, grabbed the loaded weapon off him, and managed to take him to hospital to sober up. But it got people thinking, was Connor really innocent after all? And this kind of rumbled on for a couple of weeks until police and Connor met once again. But this time, he strolled into the police station to make a confession. It was me who killed Kaylin. After all these years of lying to cover his tracks, manipulating the situation, finally, the family had answers. He was obviously charged with murder, but after speaking with lawyers, he decided to plead not guilty. And it was only after months that he finally accepted a plea deal and did plead guilty to this crime. And I don't know about you guys, what you think about this situation, but sometimes I do think that killers just like to have the power and the control. Sometimes I just feel like they like to mess with the family and just do anything that they can to be obstructive. Thankfully though, he was eventually given 37 years behind bars.
One of my biggest fears is either myself or someone I love going missing, vanishing into thin air, leaving behind no clues besides a grainy image on security footage. That's exactly what happened to Lauren Spear in 2011. She disappeared after a night out drinking with friends. At the same bar, another girl would go missing from a few years later. That girl would eventually be found dead, but Lauren? Nothing has ever been found. Zero evidence. This is a story about a girl who literally disappeared in plain sight, and it's unsettling to think that this could happen to any of us at any given moment. So let's talk about it. Lauren Spear was 20 years old when she mysteriously disappeared on June 3rd, 2011 in Bloomington, Indiana. She was a student at Indiana University. A few years before she went missing, Lauren attended a summer camp where she met her current boyfriend named Jesse, and she also met a few of her really good friends that would later attend Indiana University as well. One of those good friends was a man named Jay, and they all kind of hung out together. Lauren seemed to be living a really good life until one summer evening when everything would change. It was the evening of June 3rd. Lauren and a bunch of her friends were out drinking at Kilroy's sports bar. Jesse didn't go out with her that night, but the two did text each other a lot up until he went to bed. Lauren left the bar at around 2:30 that morning, leaving behind her shoes and phone. After this, she was seen on security footage a handful of times, up until she disappeared. She was last seen at 4:30 that morning walking south on College Avenue back to her apartment, which wasn't that far away. But somehow along the way, she vanished, never making it home, and she was never seen on security footage again. The next morning, Jesse tried texting her, and he did get a response back, but it wasn't from Lauren. It was an employee at the bar who told him that she had left her belongings there. Not long after this, he reported Lauren missing to the Bloomington police. Because she seemingly vanished into thin air, and knowing she was out drinking the night before, authorities immediately began a massive search for Lauren. A few different agencies were involved as well as the FBI, and they conducted 3 searches a day, scouring the town for any places she might be. This included near her apartment and where she was last known to be, as well as construction sites and any nearby bodies of water. But the only thing ever found was her purse and keys in an alley that she walked through right before she went missing. This led authorities to comb through any and all security footage from the night she went missing, and from this they were able to piece together a timeline of her last movements. So they went back in time to the night of June 3rd, 2011. At around 12:30 a.m., Lauren left her apartment at the Smallwood Plaza apartment complex with her friend David. Together they walked to Lauren's friend Jay's apartment, which wasn't very far away. There they hung out with him and his neighbor named Corey up until 1:46 a.m., where they're seen on security footage entering Kilroy's bar. 30 minutes go by and then they are seen leaving, and at this point it's clear that Lauren is very intoxicated. She somehow left the bar without her shoes or her phone, which is worrisome. After this, Corey and Lauren are seen entering her apartment complex at around 2:30 that morning. They are both pretty intoxicated here, stumbling around, so much so that Lauren actually fell and hit her head a couple of times throughout the night. And someone else who happened to walk by Lauren in her complex that night even noticed how out of it she was, and he even asked her if she was okay, which she said yes. 15 minutes later, Lauren leaves her apartment and is seen walking through an alley that sits between College Avenue and Morton Street, and then coming out the other side. This wasn't an unfamiliar place to her, as it led directly to her friend Jay's and Corey's apartment, and she walked through that alley a lot. But what's strange though is that as she walked into the alley, she had her purse and keys with her, but as she came out, she didn't. They were eventually found in this same alley, and I think this goes to show how intoxicated she was that night, as she didn't even realize that she dropped them in the alley. Lauren finally arrived at Corey's apartment, where his roommate Michael was also home. Corey then begins throwing up, so Michael reportedly helped him get to bed while Lauren waited downstairs. According to Michael, Lauren wanted to continue drinking or even go out and party some more, but because of how intoxicated she was, he asked her to just sober up and stay the night for her own safety. He especially didn't want her walking home alone, not in this state. This is when 3:30 in the morning hits, and at this point, Michael just wanted to go to bed. So he called his neighbor and Lauren's friend, Jay, to come and get her and take care of her. When she went to Jay's apartment, he noticed a big bruise under her eye, but she just kept saying she didn't know how she got it. Some speculate that it was because she fell a few times that night and possibly hit her eye, but that has never been officially proven. Jay said that Lauren then made 2 calls from his phone, both to 2 separate friends who did not answer, and she never left a message either. The last time Lauren was ever seen was when she left Jay's apartment at 4:30 a.m. According to him, he watched her walk away heading south on College Avenue from 11th Street, presumably on her way back to her apartment, but she never made it home, and she was never seen alive again. This footage gave authorities at least a timeline of her last movements, but there were still so many questions. So they started questioning her friends that she was with that night, and all of their stories kind of differed, and some even changed a bit. Jay said that when she left, he went upstairs to watch her and make sure she was okay. And as she rounded the corner, he said he saw a shadowy figure next to Lauren, like really close to her. But he didn't think anything of it at the time. So police started reviewing security footage from nearby businesses and found that this white pickup truck had circled the area 2 times the night Lauren disappeared. They don't know for sure who it belonged to, as it was a really grainy image, or if it was even connected to this case, but they released it to the public anyway. Then some people online said that it looked as if someone was riding in the bed of the truck, although the image is so grainy that I feel like it's hard to tell. They were hoping that this footage would provide some leads, but it didn't, and no trace of Lauren was found, which left investigators stumped. Over the next few months, authorities continued to follow up on leads, and one of those leads led them to search the Sycamore Ridge landfill in Pimento. I guess trash from Bloomington is taken here, so they searched through everything for 9 days, but still they found nothing. There would be no movement in this case for 4 years until another mystery took place in the very same bar Lauren last visited the night she went missing. On April 24th, 2015, 22-year-old Indiana University student Hannah Wilson went missing after leaving Kilroy's sports bar. She was last seen getting into a taxi in front of the bar, and after this, she disappeared. Her body was found the next morning in a desolate field in Brown County, and she had been bludgeoned to death. Laying next to her, though, police found a cell phone that did not belong to her, and when they tracked down who it belonged to, it led them to this man, Daniel Messel. Daniel was arrested and charged for Hannah's murder, and at first, police were investigating a possible link between this case and Lauren's. I mean, there were a lot of similarities. Both around the same age, went to the same school, and even went to the same bar before they went missing. But after a few months of investigating, police ruled out any connection between the two cases, saying they are unrelated despite the similarities. Then a year later, a tip led the FBI to search a property in Martinsville, which is about 20 miles north of Bloomington. This property was connected to a local man named Justin Wagers, and he lived there with his mom and stepdad. Justin was known to expose himself to women and was overall just a creep. So when tips came in suggesting to look there, the FBI did. They brought in cadaver dogs, which did find some potential evidence. So they dug up the area where the dogs hit, but just like before, they found nothing. What's interesting though is that Justin had a white pickup truck, just like the one seen in the security footage from the night Lauren went missing. They did tow it away and check for any potential DNA, but I'm assuming they found nothing because I can't find any definitive answers online. So once again, we are back at square one. Zero evidence of anything despite so many tips and leads. And although we still don't know what happened to Lauren that night, there are a few theories. Theory number one is that Lauren overdosed that night, either accidentally by her own doing or by someone drugging her. Her parents believe that she could have possibly been drugged at the bar that night based on her level of intoxication. They believe that she is likely dead, and although they don't want to accuse anyone, they feel that her male friends that were with her that night know more than they are letting on. According to the Spearer family, Jay, Corey, Michael, and even Lauren's boyfriend Jesse all lawyered up immediately after she disappeared and refused to take a polygraph test. According to all of their lawyers, they have taken and passed polygraph tests, just private ones since they don't trust the Bloomington police. And because there is no physical evidence tying them to her disappearance, they've never been named as suspects. It could be possible that she overdosed on accident by her own doing. Her friends and boyfriend all said she used drugs in addition to alcohol that night, specifically cocaine and crushed up Klonopin tablets. And this is dangerous all on its own. But what a lot of people didn't know was that Lauren had a rare heart condition called long QT syndrome. This condition affects the heart's ability to relax after a heartbeat, and it's not recommended to heavily drink or use drugs for those who have it. There were rumors about her getting kicked out of her summer camp for drug use, and after she disappeared, authorities did find a small amount of cocaine in her room. Adding to this theory is the fact that just 9 months before she disappeared, she was arrested on charges of public intoxication and illegal consumption. So some think that she may have overdosed in one of the apartments that night, and those with her disposed of her body to not get in trouble. But I feel like that's just unlikely because they're just college kids. It's not like the movies where you can make someone disappear so easily. I also feel like something would have been found by now or someone would have talked. Some think that it could be a possibility that she did leave the apartment that night, but because of how intoxicated she was, maybe she fell somewhere like in a construction zone and then just died before anyone ever found her. Again though, I just feel like something would have been found by now if that was the case. And lastly, theory number 2 was that she was abducted by a stranger and killed. And considering some of the evidence they found on the 2 men that I previously mentioned, I feel feel like that could be the case. Although there's no evidence of that, police are not ruling out foul play until there is something to go off of. It's just crazy to me that she was seen so many times on security footage that entire night, except for on her walk back home. Like, I just don't get where she could possibly be, and that is terrifying and one of my biggest fears. But it's now been 14 years, and whatever happened to Lauren that summer night remains a mystery.